Ready, so today this video going to do a reaction to the JTVideos PS7 Part 5, which the call is possessed for the reign of the tour, I think, yeah. So anyway, so it's reaction.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Rebooted MCU. Today we are here with Rebooted MCU Phase 7 Part 5, which really covers the 7th project in Rebooted MCU Phase 7. I'm not going to waste any time, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and let's jump into this project. The 7th project of Rebooted MCU Phase 7 is Fantastic Four Reign of Tut, and it takes place in Universe 2033. The project opens up on Skrullos, the homeworld of the Skrulls, as we see civilians walking the street. Many of them appear to be upset, with some crying while others struggle to keep their emotions together. This is when a transmission appears on a nearby screen, sharing the news of the tragic death of the late Queen, Anel. Anel had overseen Skrullos through a tumultuous period of time, with a faction of Skrulls choosing to engage in a civil war against the throne that eventually spilled over to Earth and the greater universe as well. This rebellion was quelled thanks to the aid of Captain Marvel and ended with the defeat of both Kalert and Elijah. But the distress caused by so many traumatic events left Anel weak, causing her body to eventually give out during a routine meeting with her cabinet. Her death was painless, but the result was not. As the citizens of Skrullos mourn for their queen, a new leader has taken over. King Doric, otherwise known as Hulkling, played by Nicholas Hamilton, assumed the throne the day of his mother's funeral. The scene then shifts inside the royal palace as we see Hulkling sitting on the royal throne. He is visually uncomfortable and begins to fidget as Dazan, played by Jeremy Swift, enters the throne room. Dazan gives Hulkling an overview of everything he needs to work on, including mentioning that an unknown group of young Skrulls recently attacked the planet of Kymelia. Hulkling, appearing flustered, tells Dazan that he believes it would be best for him to consult with some friends as to what he should do in his new position. While Dazan does not like the idea, he tells Hulkling that as king, he does not need his permission to do anything anymore. Delighted by this, Hulkling instructs Dazan to prepare transport to Earth as he needs to pay his old teachers a visit, and hopefully ask for some advice that will help him as king. As Dazan exits the throne room, the title card appears. We cut inside the Baxter building as we see Ben Grimm, aka The Thing from Universe 801963, played by Andy Samberg, in the kitchen making scrambled eggs as Working 9 to 5 by Dolly Parton plays in the background. As the eggs finish cooking, we see Ben place the eggs on top of a sandwich with peanut butter, salmon, and pickles. Ben grumbles to himself as he shouts from the kitchen, telling Johnny that he should really be helping out with his sister. Inside the living room, we see Johnny Storm, aka Human Torch from Universe 801963, played by Austin Butler, sipping a beer with his college friend Wyatt Wingfoot, played by Forrest Goodluck, and laughing about one of their classes. When Johnny attempted to have his Master's of Mechanical Engineering degree verified by the registrar at Empire State, the school denied his request as they lacked any records of a student named Johnny Storm attending their university. Instead of sulking about losing his degree, Johnny decided to return to school, where he would encounter and befriend Wyatt Wingfoot. Ben rolls his eyes and brings the sandwich into a dark room, where we see Sue Storm from Universe 801963, played by Chloe Fineman, lying down in bed. As she is handed the sandwich, she thanks Ben for helping to satisfy her craving, revealing that she is pregnant and is expecting to give birth at any time. It is revealed that Ben has taken up helping Susan during her pregnancy, since Johnny has returned to school and Reed has become a recluse in his laboratory. Ben has gotten so busy, in fact, that Reed decided to bring in a new part-time recruit to help out the team in the event their services are needed, a recruit whose services have not been needed up to this point. Cutting inside Reed's laboratory, we watch as Reed Richards of Universe 801963, played by William Jackson Harper, sits at his computer. All of the lights are off and the only source of light comes from his computer screen. As he scrolls, he mutters to himself, stuck on one question. Why did the arrival of the Fantastic Four team from Universe 801963 not cause an incursion? The scene quickly cuts to Latveria, where we see a legion of Doombots standing in formation just inside Castle Doom. Standing at the entrance to Castle Doom, we see Dr. Doom's robotic assistant, Lucia von Bardus, played by Pollyanna McIntosh, who proclaims that the ruler of Latveria has returned from his 3-year excursion around the world. As she says this, the doors of the castle open and we see the man formerly known as Victor Von Doom, now known as Dr. Doom, played by Cillian Murphy, enter his castle. As he does, the castle is filled with the cheers of the Doombots, prompting Doom to raise his hand in recognition of the praise. As Lucia and Doom walk down the castle's grand hallway, Doom recounts his 3-year journey around the world in search of more training and knowledge pertaining to the use of black magic. Doom discusses the various places he traveled to, including Mount Wundagore, Salem, Oregon, the Church of Lord Varney, and the Himalayan mountains. As Doom prepares to re-enter his lab, he stops and picks up a picture of an unknown woman holding a tiny child in her hands, before gently placing it down and asking Bartis if she has continued to monitor Richards while he has been away. Bartis confirms that she has been monitoring the Fantastic Four in Doom's absence, but something appears to be slightly different about the group. Confused by this, Doom commands that Bartis pull up the live feed from the Sentry robot tasked with monitoring the Baxter building, and as she does, Doom sits in a state of utter shock. As a picture of Reed from Universe 801963 pops up on screen, Doom begins yelling, saying the feed must be damaged, as the man who sits in the Baxter building is not the Reed Richards he knows. As Bartis confirms that the feed is operating properly, Doom pounds his fist on the control panel of his computer, causing the feed to blink off as the room falls to a hushed silence. Doom turns to Bartis and commands that she fix the system and get the feed running again, and as he exits his lab, he wonders what happened to his greatest foe and bitter rival.
For spotty residues, add Finish Rinse Aid. Our improved formula disperses water.
The following day, we see Reed continue to research in his laboratory when Ben enters to give Reed some coffee. Ben asks why Reed is so stressed about figuring out why there was no incursion, a question that Reed laughs off, saying that Ben knows that he's a perfectionist and there is simply no question that he will allow to go unanswered. As Ben shrugs and prepares to leave, Reed spits out his coffee and leaps to his feet in triumph. Ben scolds Reed for drinking his coffee without checking the temperature first, but he is cut off by Reed, saying that he discovered a document being housed at the New York Public Library that contains text related to the corrective theory of the multiverse. Reed says that if he can access this document, he may be able to get clarification on his query and asks Ben to accompany him to the library. Ben declines, stating that Susie's water could break at any time and he needs to be prepared for the potential birth. Reed then presses a button on his computer, causing a green light to flash on his monitor. When Ben asks what Reed just did, he tells him that for the first time, he has activated their new recruit. We then cut inside the law offices of Jennifer Walters, as we see Jennifer Walters, played by Tatiana Maslany, enjoying a cup ramen meal with her childhood best friend Jill Stevens, played by Allison Becker, as they catch up on the latest gossip from around town. Their reunion is cut off when Jen's paralegal, Ellen King, played by Chinai Ezudu, barges into the break room, informing Jennifer that there is a green light flashing in her office. This prompts Jen to spit out a mouthful of ramen, quickly saying goodbye to Jill, and rushing to her office. As she fidgets around her office, she breaks the fourth wall, telling the audience that she is the newest recruit of the Fantastic Four, and she is so excited to finally work with the team. We cut back to the Baxter building as we see Reed rush out of the Fantastic Four's apartment, nearly trucking Willie Lumpkin, the mailman, played by Rick Moranis, on the way out. As Reed apologizes and rushes towards the elevator, Willie calls out to Reed to see if there's any update on his wife's pregnancy. We watch as Reed meets an extremely excited Jennifer outside of the Baxter building, who is bombarding him with questions about their mission and how soon she should change into her She-Hulk form. Reed informs her that the only thing he needs on this mission is her library card, much to the disappointment of Jennifer. Reed laughs, apologizing for the false alarm, as the duo make their way towards the New York Public Library. We cut to 30 minutes later as we see Reed and Jennifer being led into the basement of the New York Public Library by Valerie the librarian, played by Doreen Blackstock, who explains to the duo that the basement of the library is home to the special collections, texts that are considered to be either extremely valuable or rare. She also explains that only people with special approval are allowed to view the special collections, stating that the mayor himself granted Reed permission a number of years ago. As the group reaches the special collections, Valerie wishes the duo luck as she returns to the front desk. Reed and Jennifer begin looking through the ancient and valuable documents as Jen pulls out a document with Williams Innovations at the top, causing her to smile. After a bit of searching, Reed manages to find the document and begins intently reading through the text. When Jennifer asks Reed what the document says, he reveals that this is arguably the first documented occurrence of someone writing down the corrective theory of the multiverse, and that whoever managed to transcribe the theory was years ahead of his time, as the very concept of the multiverse is widely considered considered to have first become mainstream around 1985. However, Reed surmises that this document is from the early dynastic period of ancient Egypt, based on the ink used and the state of the document itself. As Reed continues to examine the document, he notices a signature at the bottom that reads NRRT. Reed then concludes that someone with the initials NRRT lived in the early dynastic period and had an extensive understanding and knowledge of the multiverse. Jen begins to clap and tells Reed that she was happy to be able to help him in his research, but that she should probably return to work. However, Reed cuts off Jen, saying that they are not finished, as the only way Reed will finally be able to have peace of mind about his inquiry is if he and the Fantastic Four travel back in time and get confirmation from the man who Reed considers to be the new founding father of multiversal theory. Jen falls silent, then proceeds to ask Reed all sorts of logistical questions, such as how they could possibly manage to time travel back in time, and even if they could, how they'd be able to find someone with the initials NRRT out of everyone living in the ancient world. Reed tells Jen to quit worrying, as he will have everything figured out by tomorrow at 12 p.m., when they will travel back in time to ancient Egypt. Still perplexed by the situation, Jen sighs and asks Reed if he truly thinks that he needs to go through all this trouble just to get an answer to a simple question, and follows this up by asking Reed what he is truly hoping to accomplish by doing this. Reed is silent but smiles at Jen and thanks her for being a part of the team, prompting Jen to shrug, saying that she will clear her calendar and will help Reed and her new team in whatever mission they feel is necessary.
It should cost $1 billion to look that good. Take it all out, it's pure. It should cost $1 billion to look this good. Check my technique. I'm too busy.
1 million and the new Million Gold Elixir by Raban.
Come on.
Whenever no car insurance gets in your way, temp cover for an hour or even a day. Temp cover to share. Or if you just need to get there, and on that day you pick it up new, woohoo! You could get a quote in under 2 minutes. Join the 3 million who got temporary insurance and get on the road. Tempcover.com.
We cut to the following day at around 11 a.m. in the morning as we see Doom staring at his newly built monitor, once again watching the Baxter building as we see Reed setting up a machine in his laboratory as Johnny watches in eager anticipation. Johnny asks Reed if the device that he's setting up is the time door he copied from the Universe 801963 Dr. Doom. Reed confirms, stating that after Doom sent he, Johnny, and Ben to the 18th century, he managed to copy the schematics of the device and replicated it for the team's use. Johnny laughs as he recalls the trio's adventures in the 18th century, bringing up the fact that Ben decided to become Blackbeard for a brief period of time, a memory that angers Ben. As Ben enters the laboratory to express his frustration towards Johnny, we watch as She-Hulk enters the lab wearing her Fantastic Four uniform, catching the attention of both Johnny and Ben. Reed asks Jen if she managed to get everything on her schedule sorted, prompting Jen to smile and note that when you are your own boss, you make your own schedule, and that despite her absence, she is sure everything is going to go fine back at her office. However, back at her office, we see Ellen screaming and hiding under her desk as Hulkling stands in the doorway of the office, apologizing for making a scene and asking where he could find Jennifer Walters. Ellen begins to have a panic attack, stating that she hopes Spider-Woman or someone else would come in and save the day, fearing that another alien invasion has begun. Hulkling attempts to calm Ellen down, assuring her that he is a friend of Jennifer and simply requires her expertise about some important decision he will be making. Ellen, still freaked out, tells Hulkling that she believes Jennifer set up a meeting with Dr. Richards at the Baxter building to discuss a grant proposal, and that she could likely be found there. Ecstatic, Hulkling thanks Ellen and begins searching for a way to locate the Baxter building. Ellen crawls out from under her desk and begins having another panic attack, realizing that she might have gotten her boss killed by disclosing her location to an alien. Outside, we see Hulkling holding a map given to him by a street vendor as a group of citizens gather around Hulkling's ship that he conveniently landed on the street directly in front of Jen's law office. As Hulkling finally managed to locate the Baxter building on the map, he takes off into the sky as the crowd surrounding his ship watches in amazement. Back in the Baxter building, Ben watches as Reed finishes the final preparations for the time door by logging in the coordinates to travel back in time to the year 3000 BC. While Reed does this, he watches Johnny awkwardly attempts to flirt with Jen, who rejects his advances as Ben anxiously asks Reed what he should do in the event that Sue gives birth while he is away. Reed tells Ben not to worry, as their journey shouldn't be long enough for anything unusual to happen. Ben shrugs as we watch Reed activate the time door as he, Johnny, and Jen prepare to travel back in time. In Latveria, Doom stands in a hushed silence. As the time travel commences, we begin to hear his breathing grow louder and louder. As rage builds inside him, Lucia walks over to Doom and asks him if the technology being used by the inhabitants of the Baxter building is the same as his time door. As the time door begins to shut on the trio, we slowly watch as Hulkling bursts into the laboratory, shocking the group as Sue screams from her room that the building manager called about Hulk breaking into the building. Jen looks at Hulkling and in a state of complete shock, asks what he is doing here. Before anyone can react, Hulkling leaps at Jen in an attempt to give her a hug, but as he does, the time door closes, leaving no trace of the trio or Hulkling as Ben stands shocked at what just transpired. In Latveria, we see the destroyed laboratory of Dr. Doom as he screams at his computer monitor, demanding to know how this imposter managed to take over the home of his arch-nemesis and also managed to copy his technology. In an attempt to quell the fury of her master, Lucia asks Doom if he would like for her to use a sentient robot to copy the data found on Reed's computer. The data would allow Doom to know where the group traveled to. Doom agrees, saying that he will also be using his time door to pay this imposter a visit. We watch as Reed, Johnny, Jen, and Hulkling arrive in the year 3000 BC. The group stands in awe of the natural beauty of Egypt, while Jen quickly scolds Hulkling for showing up out of nowhere and recklessly throwing himself into the time door. Hulkling apologizes and introduces himself to Reed and Johnny as King Hulkling. Hearing his new title, Jen immediately realizes what has happened and embraces Hulkling, apologizing for snapping at him and telling him that the two will catch up as soon as her mission is over. Reed stands in silence, reaching into his pocket and pulling out the time door's remote, which reads that the current year is 3000 BC. Confused by the lack of enthusiasm, Jen asks what his deal is. Reed responds that something is off, as there are utility poles with electric wires directly outside the ancient city of Memphis, technology that was not invented until the 19th century. Suddenly, we see retainers of the Pharaoh begin charging from the city towards the group, shouting for the four to stand down. Reed begins to shake his head, asking the group if they also understood what the men charging towards them were saying. Johnny seems confused before Reed emphasizes that the men are speaking English and not Sumerian. As the retainers surround the group, Hulkling suggests that they peacefully attempt to resolve whatever conflict these men have with them. But before Reed can utter a single word, one of the retainers pulls out a futuristic-looking weapon, shocking the four beyond belief. Johnny gulps and asks Reed the name of that weapon, to which he responds that he has never seen a weapon as advanced in his lifetime. Suddenly, the retainer shoots the weapon at Reed, hitting him, causing his body to fall limp. He crashes towards the ground as a similar laser hits Johnny, also causing his body to go limp. With both Johnny and Reed immobilized, Jen and Hulkling attempt to fight back against the retainers, when one fires a weapon that shoots out a green laser, causing both Jen and Hulkling to turn into stone. As our four heroes find themselves defeated by the retainers, we watch as a new retainer drives a vehicle similar to that of the Fantastic Car up to the heroes and demands that the other retainers load the four into the vehicle, saying that the Pharaoh has been expecting them.
Click to discover Amazon bestsellers. Shop now.
Come on!
Back in the present, we watch as a sentry robot lands on Reed's computer inside the Baxter building and copies all the data saved on the device. As the information is sent back towards Latveria, we watch Lucia begin parsing through the data as Doom impatiently taps his foot on the ground. After a few seconds of looking over the data, Lucia reveals that the group has traveled back to the year 3000 BC. Doom crosses his arms and recalls that he once used his time door to send a man back to the year 3000 BC. A man by the name of Arthur Harrow. Doom commands Lucy and the Doom Boss to prepare his time door for immediate time travel, as all of Doom's underlings rush to set up the device. Back in ancient Egypt, we watch as Reed regains consciousness, finding himself along with an unconscious Johnny and a solidified She-Hulk and Hulkling trapped inside an odd-looking electric cage. As Reed begins to look around the room, he deduces that he is inside a royal throne room, but does not understand how he was so easily defeated, recalling that he felt that his body lost its elasticity. As Johnny also slowly regains consciousness, we watch as one of the retainers enters the room and tells the duo how lucky they are that they are about to have personal counsel with the Pharaoh, who is expecting them to arrive at any time. Reed looks confused as a retainer introduces the Pharaoh, calling him the man who brought hope to Memphis, magnificent savior sent by Ra to deliver life-altering knowledge and technology, and the one who saved Egypt from the menace known as En-Sabah-Nur. We suddenly watch as a man enters the throne room. The man introduced to be Pharaoh Rama-Tut, played by Nakuti Gatwa. Rama-Tut motions for the retainer to leave as he pulls out a futuristic device of his own, firing a green laser at She-Hulk and Hulkling, who are both freed from their stone tombs. As the four stand in shock, Tut begins laughing as he walks towards the cage and asks Reed if he is impressed by his weapon. Reed stands shocked, but Tut does not wait for him to respond, saying that the weapon he used is fairly common in the 30th century. Once the death penalty was abolished worldwide in the 28th century, scientists created a device that would encase criminals in a rock-like cocoon for the remainder of their days. Much more humane than killing, it is believed. Reed stands with his mouth agape, trying to figure out what someone from the 30th century would be doing in 3000 BC. While Johnny shouts at Tut, asking him what weapon he used on him. Tut claps his hands, thanking Johnny for the question, saying that the device is known as a cosmic suppressor. It's a device created by Tut himself, and the beam shot from the weapon is capable of suppressing the abilities granted to those who possess the power cosmic. Johnny, the man who is never quiet, stands in complete silence, trying to fathom what he just heard. She-Hulk stands and asks Tut how he knew that Reed and Johnny had powers that would make a device like that capable of stopping them, which causes a huge smile to form on the face of Tut as he returns to his throne, revealing that one would recognize how to stop their ancestor, especially someone as recognizable as the mighty Reed Richards. The group stands stunned as Rama-Tut begins to tell his story, starting off with his real name, Nathaniel Richards. Nathaniel Richards explains that in the 30th century, the world respects the Richards family as the family of science, with the Richards spearheading a monumental scientific discovery each decade. Nathaniel was no different, having the IQ of a college freshman by the time he was 5 years old. He would be the top of every class, graduate with multiple PhDs, and was seen as the next great member of the Richards family tree. Based on his love of science and history, Nathaniel sought to finally unravel an ancient philosophical question, that being the process of turning base metals into silver or gold, otherwise known as alchemy. Nathaniel believed that if he could figure out the process of alchemy, he would be able to develop a super drug, capable of curing even the most incurable diseases and potentially even granting someone eternal life. Nathaniel would spend years attempting to crack this formula, but after wasting these years, he'd be rejected by the scientific community, causing Nathaniel to fall into a deep depression and losing his sense of purpose. One day, while exploring the Ancient Technology Museum, he discovered a time door with the initials VV Doom inscribed on it. Remembering his love for history and using his status as a scientist, Nathaniel would steal a time travel device, a device that was once readily available to the public, created by the brilliant scientist Lunella Lafayette, but became outlawed due to the potential risks associated with its use. Using this device, Nathaniel would travel back to the year 3005 BC, using his intellect to present the ancient Egyptians with technology and other modern devices that are centuries ahead of their time. Because of this, the Egyptians began to revere Nathaniel as a god, eventually naming him the pharaoh and causing him to adopt the title of Rama-Tut. As Tut finishes the story, he holds up the time door remote, prompting Reed to realize that it was taken from him while he was incapacitated. Tut laughs, telling Reed that for a man as universally renowned as he is shocked that he is still using primitive technology like the time door. As Tut pulls out his own time travel device, notice that it looks familiar, as it is the same device used by Cable in Moon Knight. While the group attempts to process what they have just learned, Reed asks Tut what he means by the universe, considering Reed a renowned scientist. Tut once again laughs, asking Reed if he truly believes that Tut would not understand the concept of variance, revealing that he not only knows that the Fantastic Four exists in every universe, but also about the Council of Reeds. Reed is floored, demanding to know how Tut managed to learn of the Council, since their existence was supposed to be known by only those involved. Tut tells Reed to calm down, saying that his variants have accounts of their own, revealing that he is a multiversal transversing module as well. Tut explains that while Reed's variants typically all act the same, desiring to help the world through technological innovation, his variants are much more diverse and deadly. Tut reassures the group that he is one of the kind of variants, and this entire Rama Tut persona is merely just him playing out his wildest fantasies of being worshipped by those beneath him. But now that Reed is here, he does require his services. Confused, Reed listens as Tut reveals that he is the one who wrote the corrective theory of the multiverse on the document signed with the initials NRRT, which stands for Nathaniel Richards, Rama Tut. Tut believed that Reed would become furious with it being published and would travel back in time to get revenge on the person who discredited his research. But Tut is surprised to find out that this is not the case. A confused Johnny asks why Tut believed that Reed would be furious about someone publishing the corrective theory on an ancient document, prompting Tut to remove a book from under his garb. The book in question is entitled A Collection of Multiversal Theories, a primer, written by Reed Richards. Tut reveals that Reed's last and greatest work in his time is publishing the definitive guide to multiversal theory, becoming known as the leading scholar in the field to the point that nobody in history is believed to have had a better understanding of the multiverse than he. Silence fills the throne room as outside we watch Dr. Doom arrive in the year 3000 BC. Jen looks at Reed, asking him if he truly did know the answer to his own question this entire time, something that causes Reed to remain silent as he refuses to answer. We then
Blisters are annoying, and forget regular plasters. Try a Compeed blister plaster. It absorbs painful pressure and creates optimal humidity levels for fast healing. Instant relief. We work, you move.
And for cold sores, try Compeed patches with smart technology for accelerated healing.
Come on!
David off, cooling that, sir. The new treasure.
We then watch as Tut pulls out a new device from under his clothing, a tablet he reveals to be a multiversal stability tracker, a device that tracks the formation of incursions as well as the stability of the multiverse as a whole. Tut explains that every time his activity gets close to causing an incursion, he simply kills a few hundred or so of his followers, and that typically causes the corrective theory to kick in. Not enough people's lives are being changed to trigger an incursion. Hulkling screams at Tut, telling him that he is no pharaoh, he is a monster, as a true leader of men would not kill innocent people in order to continue enjoying his folly. Tut laughs and tells Hulkling to quit with this sentimentality, as the entire concept of multiversal theory will soon be null and void when he and his variants complete their sacred mission. Tut shows the group an image on his multiversal stability tracker, an image showing that the stability of the multiverse is reaching critical levels of instability. Tut explains that it all started when the Avengers used the microverse to time travel, and has only gotten worse and worse as more eager individuals decided to disregard the potential dangers of tampering with space and time. Reed comments that Tut did the same thing he is preaching against, something that Tut agrees with, but states that his mission is to help bring about multiversal instability. He continues to say that if the multiverse was become unstable, there would no longer be clear barriers preventing one person from entering the universe of another, making multiversal travel not only extremely easy, but essentially creating a never-ending supply of doorways to other universes. Reed chimes in, telling Tut that he should know what would happen if people continued to abuse a collapsed multiverse. Tut acknowledges, saying that it would ultimately result in the death of all living things in every universe after only a couple hundred years based on the influx of cosmic energy. However, Tut and his variants have been assigned a mission, one that requires a collapse of the multiverse and the formation of a new universe, and is also the very reason Tut needs Reed to help him. Tut explains that as part of his mission, he will be traveling to different universes along with his army of retainers. The reason for this is confidential, but Tut will need Reed to help construct a giant microversal entry point, one that will be large enough for Tut and his entire army to travel through. Tut also tells Johnny, Jen, and Hulkling that they will be put on the line to help build futuristic weapons to be used during their mission. Reed refuses to help, saying that while he doesn't know exactly what Tut is planning to do, it sounds an awful lot like pillaging. Tut slams his fist on the throne room wall, screaming at Reed for being as smart as he is. He can't even comprehend the importance of the mission that has been tasked to Tut and his variants. Moreover, Tut blames Reed for falling into this situation, bringing up the fact that Reed's curiosity led him to ending up in the past, causing the multiverse to become more and more unstable. Because of Reed's insatiable appetite for knowledge, billions will suffer, and he will have a simple choice. Either help Ramatut complete his mission and potentially be spared when the mission is complete, or watch all of his friends die one by one. As Reed falls to his knees hearing this, the multiversal stability tracker begins flashing red and making a screeching noise. As Tut turns to look at the device, he falls to his knees and screams in excitement, quickly jumping to his feet and pointing towards Reed, telling him that in the short amount of time they had been talking, the stability of the multiverse completely collapsed. The multiverse has been opened, all because Reed decided to mess with space and time. As Reed stares at the ground, Tut tells the group that he is headed to bed, as tomorrow his grand mission will begin, and he will start to reshape everything. As he exits, he tells Reed that he will give him the night to decide whether or not he will help with building the device, and if he refuses, his friends will start being killed the next morning. A few hours later, in the dead of night, the four heroes sit in silence, still attempting to comprehend the revelations they learned earlier in the day. Jen clears her throat, breaking the silence and directly asking Reed why he was so hell-bent on traveling to the past if he already knew the answer to his question. Reed sits in silence, prompting Hulkling to back up Jen, saying that the whole situation seems weird with Reed knowing the truth all along. Suddenly, Reed looks down and begins bawling his eyes out, revealing that while he did know the answer to his question, he traveled to the past in order to figure out a question that even a multiversal genius could answer. What did he do to deserve this? Johnny sheds a tear as Reed says that he does not believe he should have been the one given a second chance at life. He caused billions to die by refusing to let Johnny sacrifice himself. And what did he get in return? A second chance for a new purpose. A beautiful family, new friends, children on the way, but at the cost of billions who also had stuff like this to enjoy. What makes him, the Reed of Universe 801963, so special, especially when he seemingly caused the collapse of the entire multiverse. In his mind, he might be better off dead than risking the lives of billions upon billions around the multiverse. Reed stands facing the three as tears roll down his face and asks them bluntly,
Click to discover Amazon bestsellers.
Can someone please tell me, what is my purpose? Why am I the only one who is rewarded in spite of my transgressions? On the other side of the wall, at the outside of the palace, we see Doom listening into a device that has picked up Reed's speech from the other room. Doom drops the device, unable to believe what he heard. This Reed comes from a different universe, and his Reed is gone. Doom falls to his knees, talking to himself and reminiscing on his life and his rivalry with Reed Richards. Doom bangs his fist on the ground as a tear falls from his mask. Not a tear of sadness, but one of rage. Doom stands and yells into the sky. You made me, Richards! You created Doom! And yet you leave without even saying goodbye! What is the purpose of Doom if I no longer have you to chase? Doom pants, picks up his device, and continues to listen as he walks away from the palace. Inside the palace, Reed sits on the ground crying while the three sit around thinking of what to do. After a few seconds of silence, Hulkling tells Reed that none of them know what his purpose is, but choosing to give up and wish for death will prevent him from ever figuring it out. Jen agrees with Hulkling, saying that right now they need to find a way to return home and figure everything else out later. Johnny says that all they need to do is find the remote to the time door, which is likely being held inside Ramatut's private quarters. Reed chimes in, saying that while it would be easy to simply get the remote and travel back to the present, they would be turning their back on those people ruled by Tut. Reminding the group that Ramatut will continue to kill those under him in order to prevent an incursion from occurring, Reed says that he cannot, with a clear conscience, leave without first destroying the modern technology Tut has brought to the people of the past. As the four stand in agreement, they begin forming a plan to both recover the Time Door remote and destroy Rama Tut's technology. The following morning, we watch as the Retainer enters the throne room. Clicking a remote to lower the electric cage, he demands that the four heroes get up, as Pharaoh Tut has demanded their presence at the work site immediately. As the Retainer walks directly in front of the cage, we hear Johnny scream, "Now!" as Hulkling leaps at the guard, knocking him out before he could grab his gun from its holster. Minutes later, we see Johnny and Reed sneaking outside the palace, as it is revealed that they are in charge of eliminating Tut's technology, while Hulkling and Jen are in charge of reclaiming the Time Door remote. As the two look around, they notice the work site, where Reed spots the giant machine that will eventually become the microversal entry point. Setting their sights on the machine, Reed and Johnny start to sneak towards the site. Inside the palace, we see She-Hulk with handcuffs around her hands as she tells Hulkling that she is really impressed with his new technique. And as the camera pans to Hulkling, we see that he is shapeshifted and now appears as a human, and is now wearing the clothing worn by the Retainer to blend in. Hulkling reveals that his human appearance is a mishmash of random humans he saw while he was on Earth. While it took some time to master, he has finally perfected his shapeshifting technique and has even named his shapeshifting persona, Teddy Altman. As She-Hulk and Teddy continue down the hallway, they are stopped by a Retainer who asks Teddy where he is bringing the prisoner. Teddy responds that the prisoner refused to work and even managed to kill at least 10 of the Pharaoh's finest men. But thankfully he was able to place power-absorbing handcuffs on her before she caused any more damage, and he is now bringing her to the Pharaoh for execution. The Retainer is shocked to hear that there was an incident of that magnitude, but allows Teddy to continue on through the palace. We then cut to the work site as we see citizens of all genders and age putting weapons together under the careful watch of Tut's Retainers, who carry spiked bats in case any of them attempt to stop working or leave the site. As Reed and Johnny sneak around the gated entrance, we see Rama Tut on the inside of the site, looking at his watch, complaining that his Retainers should not take this long to bring him the prisoners. As one of the Retainers tells Tut that he will go to check on the situation, we hear a loud explosion fill the air. As Tut turns towards his palace, we see smoke pouring out of the entrance, angering Tut as he begins running towards the palace. Johnny and Reed sit shocked as Reed wonders if the explosion was caused by Jen and Hulkling, but Johnny cuts him off, saying that the duo should use a distraction to their advantage since it drew Rama Tut away from the site. This causes the duo to leap into action and begin destroying the technology. Inside the palace, we see Teddy and She-Hulk lying on the ground, covered in dust and debris as we see the Retainers running through the hallway. Transforming back into Hulkling, She-Hulk gets up and tells Hulkling that they need to get the remote as fast as they can. Hulkling asks Jen what the massive explosion was, but Jen tells him they have no time to worry about that, as the two begin running down the hallway, fighting numerous Retainers as they search for the remote. At the worksite, we watch as Reed frees the slaves, while Johnny begins setting the technology on fire, causing everything to malfunction and even managing to destroy the utility poles, which causes the buildings around the city to fall into darkness. As the Retainers continue fighting against Reed, we eventually watch as one runs into the entrance of the worksite and demands that all able-bodied Retainers follow him, under direct order of the Pharaoh, as they are needed at the palace. Reed watches the Retainers abandon their fight with him, and the now freed civilians run and scream in joy. Inside the palace, he watches Jen and Hulkling manage to find the remote to the Time Door, and after breaking through the side of the palace, they reunite with Reed and Johnny at the work site. As Johnny watches a device that would have become the microversal entry point explode in a fiery blaze, Reed asks the duo if they caused the explosion, but before we hear their answer, watch as the four heroes are successfully sent forward, back to the present. However, we do not follow our heroes back to the present. Instead, we cut inside the palace as we see the ground is filled with the deceased bodies of Retainers. As in the throne room, we see Dr. Doom standing atop of the throne, holding a beaten and bloodied Rama Tut in his hands. Rama Tut pleads for his life, saying that if Doom wants the throne, he can have it. Tut will do anything if his life can be spared. Doom's eyes appear bloodshot as he tells Tut that even a man who is desperate enough to give up his power in the face of absolute defeat is not as desperate as a man who lacks a purpose for breathing. Doom slams Tut to the ground, who spits up blood as Doom wipes his blood-stained helmet, telling Tut that thankfully for him, he will play a vital role in giving Doom a renewed purpose. A confused Tut looks on as Doom grabs him by the neck as he begins screaming, telling Tut that he is aware of his mission and he would like to play a part in reshaping the universe, demanding that Tut bring him to his boss. While Tut initially seems hesitant to do this, Doom squeezes his neck harder, telling him that he will figure out a way to find his master. The only outcome that will be different is whether Tut is alive or if Doom brings his corpse to his boss. Tut finally agrees, pulling out a tablet as he is released by Doom, and as he hits a button, a portal opens. And as the duo both enter, the portal closes, leaving the palace soaked in the blood of Tut's retainers. In the present, we see the group arrive back in the Baxter building as they celebrate their successful mission. As Reed slowly begins to let the situation set in, he rushes over to his computer and begins furiously searching for something. As he does, Hulkling tells Jen that it was great to see her, that being able to work with the trio helped him reclaim a sense of confidence in himself, and that while he knows that things will not be easy as he takes over as king, he simply needs to trust himself and make his mother proud. Jen hugs Hulkling as Johnny gives him a fist bump, with Hulkling promising that he will make more frequent trips to Earth, as he hopes to form a diplomatic relationship and engage in trade with the planet. Jen smiles before turning to Reed and asking him what is so important that he can't even take time to say goodbye to Hulkling, to which Reed responds that he had to check something Tut was talking about, saying that while it is true that the barriers of the multiverse have collapsed, he does not believe that he caused them to do so. As he contemplates what could have happened, he turns to the group, telling them that even if the universe faces extinction, as long as the Fantastic Four are breathing, they will do everything in their power to save it. And as the trio smiles back at Reed, the screen turns black.
If you want your dishes to come out spotless, you need a dishwasher that's just as clean. Finish Dishwasher Cleaner, Target.
Come on.
We cut inside the Microverse, a location that appears to be booming since the events of Doctor Strange broke in reality. We watch a mother feed her 2 children, as we also see the familiar faces of Arctis Rand, played by Zachary Levi, Marionette, played by Mila Kunis, and Biotron, played by Jack Black. The prosperous land and silent, peaceful atmosphere is abruptly interrupted as we see a giant explosion of energy overtake the land. As we hear the residents of the Microverse scream, smoke clears as a man with a similar appearance to that of Rama Tut stands, panting. I did it. I'm the first to travel from a different universe. I can't be stopped. He falls on his back as residents of the Microverse slowly approach him. Feeling their presence, the man sits up and looks at a device similar to that of the multiverse stability tracker used by Rama Tut that shows a blinking red warning light on it. The man stands and brushes his clothes off. So, a giant burst of energy will finally do it. It will finally open a pathway to all universes. We then watch blue energy slowly begin to shadow the man, as seconds later, he unleashes a massive burst of energy which sends a shockwave across the Microverse, killing a large number of civilians living around. Sensing the strong burst of energy, we watch as Rand exits his home to see destruction and carnage, including the dead bodies of Marionette and Biotron. Shocked, Rand runs to see the mysterious man, who once again looks at his device. And it is done. Who are you? What the hell did you do? The man turns to Rand and smiles at him, before quickly shooting a laser directly through Rand's heart. Rand, despite the Enigma Force, falls on his back and begins coughing blood. You wouldn't understand the importance of what I just did. Your tiny, meager brain can't comprehend how lucky you are to be killed by me, to be killed as the new universe begins. A tear rolls down Rand's face. He struggles to speak but manages to get out a single phrase. Who the hell are you? Consider yourself lucky, as you're the first victim of the man who will be known as the greatest in every universe, Kang. We then watch as Kang the Conqueror, played by Nakuti Gatwa, laughs in triumph as Rand screams using his Univision to send a message to anyone who would listen. Help! The Microverse has been compromised. We then cut inside Kamar-Taj as Stephen Strange, played by Benedict Cumberbatch, sits up in his bed. That was too real to have been a dream. I just heard Rand scream to me. In the post-credit scene, we see the 4 heroes stand in Reed's laboratory as we watch Ben run into the room, telling the 4 that while they were gone, Susan successfully gave birth to twins. The 5 heroes quickly exit the lab as we cut to a few minutes later to see Reed holding his twins, a boy and a girl. smiling as he declares this one of the most fulfilling moments of his life. As Susan asks what he believes their name should be, Reed responds that they should just use the names the two had picked out prior to their birth. The boy, Franklin Benjamin Richards, the first name being the same name as Sue and Johnny's father, and his middle name being that of his godfather, Benjamin Grimm. And the girl, Valeria Megan Richards, the name chosen based on the dying request of Dr. Doom of Universe 801963, who had re-sparked his friendship with Reed and the team prior to his death. As Reed looks down at both Franklin and Valeria, he sheds a tear and holds them tightly in his arms. And that is Fantastic Four Reign of Tut, the
Yeah, so that's it with Fantastic Four revealed of return. Today's video reviews MCU PS7. Here's back the two BB7 Fantastic Four features clear back. Yeah, back Academy 1 AM, the new one coming in July is Fantastic Four, the first step back Academy to see BB flying clear. So it's gonna be clear. So yeah. So hope you enjoy the video, mention on thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you next time. Bye.